Welcome to Live on Purpose Radio with Dr. Paul Jenkins, where you will hear inspiring stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Feed your mind with a regular dose of positive energy and show up for your life every day on purpose. Living on purpose means that you have a purpose and you do it intentionally. And now, here's your host, Dr. Paul. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Live on Purpose Radio. This is Dr. Paul Jenkins. We're promoting pathological positivity today at Live on Purpose Radio. That's kind of our new thing here. It's not actually new, but a new twist on some neat things. I've got my guests in here with me today, and they're both smiling because they know that this is going to be a lot of fun. I want you to welcome today Blu Robinson.
Hello. Thank you for having me back.
Hello, Blu. And the lovely Marissa Robinson.
Hello.
No relation, right?
Just a little.
Distant, huh?
Well, they're sort of married. But I've got Blu and Marissa with me here today. Blu's been on Live on Purpose Radio before, isn't that right?
That's right, yeah. A couple years ago, I believe.
And you agreed to come back.
Yep. How could I turn it down?
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for this. Some things have happened since we talked last.
Absolutely. It's gotten quite an interesting life going on since then, so sure.
And I can introduce that a little bit, Blu. You came and talked to me. It wasn't too long after that last interview. Mm-hmm. And you told me about this idea that you had. And it was starting to take hold a little bit. Last Saturday, I got involved in a 5K race. In fact, technically, I guess I kind of helped sponsor the race.
Yeah.
We're taking care of that here today, too.
Absolutely.
This 5K was put on by your program. It's called Addict to Athlete.
Yes.
And I did pretty well.
Yeah, I saw you. You looked like a spunky college
Not
kid.
too bad for an old guy.
Absolutely.
You're fast.
Right? So we had a lot of fun at the 5K. There were probably, I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there were probably between 300 and 400 runners there.
Exactly.
Is that right? 400. Wow. And that's a significant event.
We were pretty impressed with the turnout.
First year.
So what is Addict to Athlete? How did this get started? Talk a little bit about that. And Blu, you're the founder, but Marissa, you're the brains behind the whole operation.
That is absolutely true. Absolutely
Blu's going to acknowledge that right up front. And Marissa, you're also a recreational therapist. And Blu, you have credentials in substance abuse counseling.
Yep.
So these guys are legitimate people. And there's a program that they're running that really makes a difference for people. Now, I'm going to back off and just let you talk about that a little bit. Tell us, what is Addict to Athlete? How did it get started? What are you doing?
Perfect. Well, yeah, all culminating up to our 5K last week. If we wind about a year and a half ago now, I was a new therapist getting hired on with Utah County Division of Substance Abuse. And one of the qualifications that the clients need to adhere to is making sure that they attend a community-sponsored meeting every other day or so. So it turns out to be 3 community service or community meetings a week. Mm-hmm. Now, this is traditionally the 12-step programs. It's the Alcohol Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, those kind of things.
What we would traditionally associate with addiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fundamentally great programs. I'm a firm believer that if you work those steps the way that they were designed, you'll achieve sobriety. The problem that I found is that there wasn't a lot of action involved with it. They'd get to a certain step, and typically it's the step 4, which is kind of starting to take amends and making amends and start getting some real emotional stuff drudged up, and that's typically where they stopped, because it was too emotionally charged for them, and so. I get these clients that would come in and they wouldn't find much value in it because they'd get stuck. Some clients rolled right through them. Other ones got real stuck. And so one day I took a client out on a lunchtime run with me. I said, hey, I'm going to go jog. And he said, well, can I go with you? Well, sure, I guess, if you want to. You'll be seen in public with me. So he did. He brought his running shoes the next day and we went running. And he opened up like never before. told me things that we probably would have never have got to inside the office.
Like while you're out running.
Yeah, while we're out running. Mm-hmm. It was safe. There was freedom out there. And I got this idea that maybe we should do this on a bigger scale. Mm-hmm. And so a week later, one of my athletes, his name is Tyson, and he decided that he was going to do a group. We have all the clients teach a group once in a while. He taught on exercise and depression, and I thought it's perfect. This is a guy that could help me, start this thing too. I could have an advocate that's a client, and I could help, put some of the know-how behind it. Mm-hmm. So I approached him. I said, "Hey, I got this crazy idea. I want to take a few of you guys as a test group to see if I can get you up to speed to run a 5K." Mm-hmm. And I said, "We got a 5K coming up in about a month. It's called the Chase the Mayor Run." So I said, "Who would you think we could approach to do this?" So we picked 4 other runners that were in the group, and I approached them separately, and they all agreed to do it. And so we started on the couch to 5K, And what they didn't realize is that they weren't just training to do a 5K. I was actually doing counseling with them without them even knowing it. We'd talk about stressors and stuff before we'd go out, and they, as they were, building up stress, talking about these issues, they'd go out and run, and afterwards I'd process with them, and it was gone. Or dramatically decreased. And so what we did is we decided to line them up on this 5K run, and they lined up. The gun went off. They gave the mayor a 2-minute head start, and they all chased him down. All but one athlete caught him. But the most amazing thing that happened was as they passed him, they'd all got these shirts, kind of last-minute thing that said addict to athlete on it, which is kind of a bold move. Because traditionally, an addiction is supposed to be traditionally anonymous. We don't want to talk about it. It's scary. It's not good.
That's one of the A's in AA.
Absolutely.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
And I get why they did that in the past because, back then when Bob and Bill put that program together, a handshake was as good as a signature on a contract. And so if you were a business type guy and you had an addiction and it was figured out, you weren't getting business anymore. So they wanted to keep it on the down low. Right. What I found is that these guys have the most amazing, powerful stories that once they are able to start talking about it openly and frequently, it doesn't hold them hostage anymore. And so,
you know what? Yeah. Just an acknowledgement of that, Blu, because the last time you were here at Live on Purpose Radio, we were talking about your story.
Uh-huh. Yeah, my story. Absolutely.
Excuse me.
No problem.
I should have my cough button. Andrew, help me out here. Excuse me. We were talking about your story and some of your history with some similar things. Mm-hmm. It's a powerful story, but not if it's never shared.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got to get it out. So they're running past the mayor, and one of our athletes was quick enough to be one of the first guys that passed him. And as he was running past him, he talked to him briefly, but then the mayor noticed his T-shirt and said, "Tell me about that. And what does that mean?" So he started telling him about his addiction and started telling him about how, he had a pretty heavy heroin addiction and started talking about what he's doing differently now. And the mayor was just...
Who's talking to the mayor about
it? The mayor of Provo City. And he said the mayor was kind of impressed, like, wow, that's not, typically a normal thing for a quote-unquote addict to do. Mm-hmm. So he moved on. The next athlete came up and the same kind of conversation had. And this mayor was just profoundly, astonished. He's like, I cannot believe that this is what these guys are doing. And so the most powerful thing was when they finished, they had complete strangers cheering for them for doing something that obviously the cheerers weren't doing, which was running. Mm-hmm. And they got this feeling of accomplishment, an instant gratification on a healthy way instead of a negative way. And it took off from there. My supervisors allowed me to put in some time to do this. They gave me the go-ahead to do it, which reluctantly, I'm sure at first, they were wondering if they were going to kill over some of these guys because when you think addict, you don't think quite healthy. That's why we start them off slow, and we also teach balance during it because you can turn a recreation, like a hobby, like running or exercise, into an addiction as well. So we teach them balance, so they have a whole holistic kind of approach to this.
I know we're missing part of the story because we haven't heard from Marissa yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've got a perspective on this too, and you're coming from a background of recreational therapy. Mm-hmm. You know that wholesome, healthy recreation and physical activity makes a difference in how people function. What have you observed as this has all unfolded?
Well, just in my career, you know that people fall into bad behaviors, whether it's addiction or anything else, when they're bored. It's free time. That's where it usually starts. People don't usually light up their first joint in the middle of math class or when they're at work. It's when they're
Right.
bored. And then it soon expands and just spreads into every part of their life and becomes their life.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts in that free time and when they're bored and they have nothing else to do. And that's what this program is trying to do, is to address that leisure time, that free time. How do you fill it with positive, good activities, family-oriented things, exercise, whatever, just keeping yourself involved and active and doing things to stay out of trouble is where it just begins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
where, if anyone even is into a life of sobriety and recovery, if they're going to have hiccups and fall back, it's in that free time again. It's
Right.
where all of a sudden something sneaks in,
Or
they
it's
get bored and
unstructured,
things,
or it's lacking in purpose.
Yeah, purpose,
Absolutely.
structure, and all of a sudden they have slip-ups again. And so
Right.
that's what we try to specifically address, is filling that time with positive activities and, things to do.
So in a few short months, this thing has taken on a life of its own.
It has.
You're sitting here today, Blue, in a racing jersey
Yep.
that says addict to athlete on it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw tons of those last Saturday, or T-shirts. This has taken hold, and there's a lot of people whose lives are being touched and changed by this program.
Yeah, a lot.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it?
It is. And again, I'm going to get back to that. If you were labeled as an addict or have an addiction, there's the common public view is to ostracize you and to not speak of you. One thing we do at Addict to Athlete is I don't really like or really condone, for that matter, them calling themselves addicts.
Well, you've referred to them several times today as your
athletes. Absolutely. Because although they do have an addiction, and it's very much a part of them, it is not who they are. And one thing I noticed about some of the meetings that, again, this is tongue-in-cheek here, I don't like to call themselves addicts, because if you think about that, and that's kind of what you label yourself as, that's what you will be. But there's so much more to these people. They're fathers, they're brothers, they're sisters, they're aunts, they're scholars, they're artists, they're athletes, and they're addicts. But it's a part of them. It's not who they are. And the whole concept of this group is to reevaluate that term and to
Definition.
restructure the definition to the public's eye, that these guys are some powerful people that have the stories and the capability to inspire thousands just by acting and just by doing something. To not be ashamed or afraid of it. There's not one person that walks on the face of this earth that doesn't have a family member, if not themselves, that struggles from addiction. Every family has at least one person in it, some form of it, whether it be substance abuse, pornography, gambling, exercise,
Food,
everyone
shopping,
has that.
food,
Shopping, yeah. And so the thing is it's so looked down upon. And one of my clients the other day talked about how it's looked at as almost leprosy. Everyone wants to stay away from that. When in actuality, it's caused from some kind of pain. I'm a firm believer that addiction stems from something that hurt. If we can help them find out what hurts and correct it, and forgive and maybe solve and move forward, what better way than to get them out there to erase the addiction and replace it with something of greater value?
Something productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that on Saturday as I was running this 5K. The mayor of, this was Highland, Utah, a small town near here, who has been touched by, this town has been touched by addiction. I wouldn't define it as an addict town any more than I would any town. But they've been touched by it. And at first, they were a little hesitant, weren't they?
They were.
The mayor, the city council, to allow these addicts to come in and do a race. What happened?
Well, it was funny. Traditionally, all you need to do any kind of community race is to go and get a race permit. You pay the money, you get the permit. They don't really even care what you're doing as long as you clean up after yourself. Well, the goal here, again, is to have these clients run this program, not me. I'm way too busy with other stuff. So they get to do everything that makes this program function. I had them go speak to the city council. And 3 of these guys who had been arrested and in jail in the past walked before the city council and promoted this and asked for their permission to do so, just to let them know who we are.
bring awareness.
And the mayor was shocked. He said, "We've been looking for something like this. This will be perfect." And they were apprehensive, and they were, a little bit unsure about us until they saw us show up for service projects. We cleaned a park We helped weed the park, beautify it, tear down old shrubs and clean it, along with the city council and the citizens of Highland. And they got to work with us side by side. And by the time we set up that starting line for our 5K last week, it was a beautiful venue. Was it not? You were
Yes. And that's part of what I wanted to point out there, too, because this is not just people who are coming together to try to overcome a problem. They're making the world a better place, and that makes their life better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this is a stark contrast to some of the experiences that some of your athletes have had, because they may have been incarcerated before. They may have been in rehab or some kind of a treatment facility, or maybe never anything like that, but just privately battling this thing that they're not proud of.
Yeah.
And here they are out beautifying the community and creating a better place for everybody else to be.
Well, and that's the beauty in step 12, the service orientation. And that's what they did. When you serve someone else, you don't worry about yourself as much.
That's right. There's another aspect of this we haven't even got to yet, but we will right after this break.
Fantastic.
Thank you for joining me for the Live on Purpose radio podcast. It is truly an honor to be a part of your prosperity team. Please visit the website, drpaul.org, where you will be able to sign up for Empower, a quick, inspiring message that will be sent right to your inbox several times a month. Click on the blog link to share your comments and be part of the discussion. You can also pick up powerful information products and stay in touch with upcoming events, all to assist you in creating and living a life that you love. Share Live on Purpose Radio with someone in your life today, and thanks for listening.
This is Kirk Weasler to tell you about morebetterbooks.com. Morebetterbooks.com is where you can find more better books for a more better life. Not only that, let me tell you about some of the very fun and cool select titles on morebetterbooks.com. You'll want to get a copy of The Dog Poop Initiative. This best-smelling book could change your life forever. It certainly changed the lives of thousands of Boeing employees, as well as school teachers, parents, leaders across the United States and in Israel and in Germany. And you can get your own copy at morebetterbooks.com. Whoa, that's not all. What about The Cookie Thief? This classic tale told in a rhyming format, fully illustrated with very fun hidden messages. Pick up a copy now today on morebetterbooks.com. Other great titles there: Finding Your Pathway to Mastery, Beyond Illusions, Make It Great. These titles are only available on morebetterbooks.com. Go to morebetterbooks.com today and begin to have a more better life and live that life on purpose.
The first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. The last is to say thank you. In between, the leader is a servant. Max Dupree.
Big expensive car and make lots of money and find me a honey and live in a nice big house with it's sunny with a pool and I'll be
And
cool.
we're back.
I'll always have a gig.
Fun things to discuss. We maybe should have kept the mics rolling. I think this all the time when we come back from a break. I'm thinking, wow, we should have been recording all that. But we'll see what we can get back to, because there's the other aspect I was talking about. Mm-hmm. This is a phenomenal program. And just from a perspective of a clinical psychologist, you guys are onto something. Thank you for that.
I think so.
And there's some lives that are being changed. I watched people on Saturday doing things that they probably never would have dreamed of doing a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever they were trapped. Mm-hmm. And here they are creating some new possibilities. And that's really cool. But I don't want to talk about that part for a minute.
Okay, hold on that.
Let's go back to the part where you had an idea.
Absolutely.
Can we just start with that? Because there's been a creation that's happened. You were commenting during the break, Blue, about this jersey that you're wearing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The thoughts become things. Is very real, and leading up to this race and stuff that we had, we decided that the clients and the athletes, they really want to be known out there and be set apart. Then why don't we make a couple T-shirts? And so we gathered some of our talented neighbors, and they put their heads together, and lo and behold, we come up with this amazing logo. And to see that logo when you don't really expect it on someone that you don't know out there in the real world is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think, and to behold, as I was standing there looking over the racers and seeing them wear our racing shirt even, and the message that it portrays, the message it carries, that they believe in it, that to me it blew me away. I could not understand how we got to this point so fast. In only a year's time, we have 250 athletes. We have people that have addictions, people that don't have addictions. We have siblings of people.
Children.
We
have 2 groups running, one up in Salt Lake County and one in Utah County every week.
And
you've got people in other states expressing an interest. This is taking on a life of its own.
Absolutely. This is not a unique idea. There's another group called Addict with the number 2 athlete in Pueblo, Colorado. And I spoke with the founder of that program, and it's a good program. It's amazing, and so it's not a very unique program. I think the only thing that sets us a little bit different is that I'm not running this program. They are. They're gaining the tools. They're having ideas. We had one athlete that thought we should do parades to promote our group. I thought that's kind of weird. Why would we do that? It's kind of embarrassing walking down throwing candy at people. We did 3 of them this last year, and it was amazing. The turnout was amazing.
And the athlete built most of the centerpiece for the parade himself, and all the athletes. They got a whole sign, everything together, and they coordinated it. They did it all. They created it, and I think that's where their
is to have
self-esteem
their
comes.
ideas, and their dreams come through this, and they've done some amazing stuff with it.
So back up a step again here, because we're still looking at this amazing program, the amazing opportunities, the amazing stories that are coming up that started with an idea. Ideas, thoughts, dreams. Where do those come from, and why do you have them?
Yeah.
And there might be some people out there saying, "Oh, I wish I would have had that idea." No, this was Blue's idea for a lot of reasons. Given your history, given your resources, you were perfectly designed to have and follow through on this idea. And, dear listener, you have your own.
Yeah.
And please don't minimize those.
Absolutely not.
This was just a simple idea that has turned into something really amazing.
About 10 years ago, Blue started with substance abuse counseling and started the philosophy in his own, because he saw it, I think, from his own life of erase and replace. That's where it started, of erase the addiction. You erase it and you try to change it. You have to replace it with something else,
Put
or
something
it will come
in there.
back.
Sure.
You have to fill the void. And then I think, we were married at the time, and he got a lot of in the side of his head, in the ear, of what recreation is and how it plays a big key in recreation therapy. And it just started coming together. And then, so it's slowly been building in his head for 10 years. And finally, about a year and a half ago, it felt right. Things were happening that it just seemed like this was the perfect time to make this idea come to life.
When these ideas occur, and sometimes they'll fly right out of the clear blue sky. But you're right, Marissa. I believe also that there's a building process, and there's things in your history that uniquely steer you in some particular direction. And then, boom, here this idea occurs to you.
Yeah.
You have a choice now. Once that idea occurs, what am I going to do with this? And there's all kinds of anxiety that kicks in. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that for a minute.
Well, there's a lot. A lot of it is, this is kind of a hobby right now for us, but it takes an abundant amount of time. And we are not getting paid for any of this. This is 100%, a lot of it's been on our dime, and that's been kind of hard. But the residual effects that we've seen from this have paid us back tenfold. And the anxiety is, being time conscientious, so you have time for your family. I have time to work and do my 9 to 5 job, and then do this because there's a lot of people counting on me, to guide and to lead and to teach them how to do it, so I can slowly withdraw. And then that's anxiety driven too, because are they going to do it the same way that I wanted it to be?
There's all kinds of questions that pop up, aren't there?
Absolutely.
And here's something that I've noticed also. This was your idea, Blu, but you haven't done this yourself, not even close. Mm-mm. And this is true of anyone's idea. The idea isn't just for you. It's not just for you. Look at the lives that are changing as a result of this and the opportunities that are opening up. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that all of you listeners today take your ideas seriously.
Yeah.
And you may have no idea how you're going to pull it off. Don't worry about that.
Exactly.
There's a sea of humanity out there that's looking for opportunities, and some of their ideas will be triggered by your ideas, and it's just this great creative process. It's just fun to see that happen.
Yeah, and I think with Blu too, he sees that void, and there's something there. Okay, well, now create something to fill it, and it goes along perfectly with erase and replace as well. Replace something, fill that void.
Well, you can see it in the athlete's eyes too when they've accomplished something that they didn't think they could do. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things and the biggest challenges that they have is that I can't run a mile. I can't run around the block. I'm not fast. I'm not this.
I've smoked for 25 years. I can't breathe.
Mm-hmm. Look at this body. This isn't an athletic body. And the thing is I said, well, if there were $1 million waiting at the end of a marathon, 26.2 miles, would you run to it? Would you get it? Well, absolutely. It might take you a little longer.
Yeah. There's no time limit.
I mean, some of the winners of marathon do it in just over 2 hours. One of mine I struggled through in about 5. But I made it. Anyone can do it. It just might take you a little longer.
Isn't this funny how the mind just plays with us sometimes?
Absolutely.
I was talking to one of my clients about running. And incidentally, this is a great way to do mood management too. This is one reason it works for addiction.
You're absolutely right.
In fact, we ought to talk more about that. This client was working on some depression, and she also had some weight issues that she was working on because of some other addictions in her life. Well, I challenged her to run a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Way.
Oh, I could never do that, she said.
Yeah.
Okay, and why not? Oh, I'm just out of shape, and she had 12 different reasons.
Yeah.
And I said, how long do you think it would take you to run a mile? Now, this is the interesting thing that happens in the human mind.
Yep.
Because she had just finished telling me that the best she had ever done was maybe walked a mile, and that took her probably, 20 minutes or something.
Right.
Said, how long do you think it's going to take you to run a mile? She said, probably at least 2 hours.
Scratch your
really?
head,
So you can walk it in 20 minutes.
minutes.
But it's going to take you 2 hours to run this thing. And she realized,
wait a minute.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
Our mind puts limitations in.
Yeah.
When we see an idea, that fear jumps and gives us excuses and limitations that sometimes stop us and halt us from creating and doing something.
Right.
But that's the beauty in what we're doing with some of these individualized sports. I mean, the athletes have participated in community sports, and that's a whole nother story. We can talk about that. But typically these 5Ks and these 10Ks that they're doing, they're only competing against themselves. And so really, if they want to go slow, well, then they're going to go slow. If they want to go fast, they can beat their own time. But it's not about beating anyone else. It's about them beating themselves or them, improving. And that is big, obvious, kind of like in the moment stuff that they can see, touch, taste, and feel. When they cross that finish line a minute faster than they did their last run, they see improvement. But then what we do with Addict to Athlete is we talk about, well, you saw instant improvement there. How about when you went and you approached your mom or your dad about, some of the stuff you need to talk about? Did you see instant improvement there when you approached them? And so we correlate it back into what drives their addiction. It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing how sport and recreation links up to recovery.
Building that self-esteem, that, successes, building on these little small successes, all of a sudden they start looking at other parts of their life. Well, if I can run a mile, I could go and do this.
What else could I do?
Yeah, I can face this fear. I can face and talk to this person about an issue that I've put on the back burner and, not wanting to bring out.
And self-esteem, I'm glad you mentioned that, Marissa, because this is the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if that story is all about pain and addiction and I'm trying to avoid my life and nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go eat worms.
Yeah.
What kind of things are going to be showing up in your life that way? But what if the story you tell yourself is, I am an athlete?
Yeah. That's one reason why we don't call them, verify, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm an addict. When you do that, you open the door to using again.
Absolutely.
So when you do, fall again, you say, well, it's because I'm an addict. It's part of, it's who I am.
That you're doing that. That's, that's one little piece of the traditional AA approach that I've always it rubbed me a little the wrong way. How we name ourselves makes all the difference in how we treat ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yes. I remember one of your parental power ones about that, naming your children,
Yeah.
And you name them and they create into that name, whether it's, that's the bad one. That's
my
the strong.
troublemaker.
Yeah, that's my troublemaker. All of a sudden you have a huge troublemaker. And they fall into it too as young children, even if you're not telling it to them. They create that name. And what do you call yourself? That's what you're going to create.
Right.
And we're athletes.
Boy, that has implications in relationships. That means everything about what it is you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
About who you are.
Well, it's interesting because of the small population that we have, and how everyone's pretty much linked. That's been one of our biggest challenges is, the traditional programs scratching their heads and kind of, wondering where we're coming from. And, I've gotten some feedback from some of the 12-step organizers that says, what are you guys gaming at here? You're doing things completely,
different.
Backwards
this
and
different. This is different. This is,
yeah, we had one.
Scary for them.
We actually had one traditional guy come in and talk about, how the 12 steps are about the only way you could recover. And then kind of dinged one of our athletes for not really, I guess, producing in that field anymore.
Choosing another way.
Another way. And I said that, I pulled him aside and said, remember that, addict to athlete's an addition to, not a replacement for. And if you don't know what we're about, why don't you come check with us, But the biggest thing is that they don't identify themselves as addicts. It's a part of them. Mm-hmm. And
some of them don't like that.
On the same note, when they start realizing that they're not, that it's a part, it opens up their eyes so wide to what's possible.
You can see their
I'm not that,
smile.
What am I?
Yeah, you can see wow, I'm something more
they get
than
to
just
create who they are.
The addict of who I've been labeled as for years and years and years. And I mean, you can physically see it on their face.
Yep, you can see it in the way that they hold themselves. And in fact, we talk about these shirts. They hold these things as almost uniforms. Almost like an officer or a military uniform. And we've had athletes that have relapsed, that have literally taken their shirts off, folded them up, and said, "Hey, can you hang on to this for a few weeks until I get things straight?"
I'm ready.
Oh, wow.
They respect it that much. I think, man, that's pretty powerful stuff, And that's kind of the philosophy that we teach: is that respect who you are, and you're a lot stronger and you're a lot more powerful than you think you are.
As we've addressed this wonderful program that has emerged almost from nothing, and talked about how it got started, there's a lot of passion that I'm hearing and a huge commitment to this. And I think as you believe in your dreams and you know that this is meaningful, it makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
Let's give people a way to get connected to you real quick. Addict to athlete, and that's a Roman numeral 2 or 2 I's. Is that right?
On our website, it's all the words.
It's all the words. Addict,
T-O,
athlete.org.
Yeah.
O-R-G. Go to the website. There's some neat things there. We'll put up a
we have
link also.
Facebook and Twitter also.
Facebook groups. Please, people, share this with people in your life who would benefit from this. Like Blu said earlier, everyone is being touched by this.
Everyone has one.
At some level.
Absolutely.
Blu and Marissa Robinson, thank you so much for joining us here at Live on Purpose Radio today.
Thank you.
Everybody go out there and live on purpose.